Welcome into the Lucas and Lucas podcast. Lucas Frankel alongside Mike Lucas. Mike, I believe this is our first podcast since our trip to Cleveland, or my trip to Cleveland. Things have sort of calmed down on the Kevin Durant front until this morning when Woj tweeted at 2:30 in the morning that the Nets and Celtics were engaged on a trade for Kevin Durant. First off, why the hell would the Nets even fathom in negotiating with the Celtics on any trade for Kevin Durant? Why would they want to have to deal with that? It makes no sense to me.
Unless the Celtics blew them away with an offer that no one else can match, I don't think Brown, Smart, White, and a pick is. I don't know why they would even fathom talking to the team up north. They've already got screwed by Boston once, the Kevin Durant and Paul Pierce trade, which allowed Boston to get Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, was arguably one of the worst in NBA history, certainly the worst in franchise history for the Nets. And I know Danny Ainge is gone, but I would still want nothing to do with Boston in terms of trying to negotiate a deal with them, especially when it comes to giving up a superstar like Kevin Durant. I don't want them to win. That's a team in your division. I don't want Jason Tatum, Kevin Durant in the same team. I don't want to play them 6-7 times a year and have to face them in the playoffs. I don't get it. I don't get it. So
whenever something happens like this, it's always interesting to see who is motivated to leak this story. And in your mind, is this the Nets using this as an opportunity to sort of create dysfunction among the Celtics? And obviously you saw Jaylen Brown tweeted this morning as shaking my head. So now he doesn't really feel super wanted by the Celtics, which sort of leads me to believe this may have been the Nets planning this in the media just for that one very reason, to try to create, some, bad things and bad vibes in the Celtics locker room. And then, but the Celtics had a reason to do it because they wanted to gauge what the reaction would be if they did trade Jaylen Brown for Kevin Durant, obviously, and a few other things. So my guess is the Nets planted this story. What do you think?
Oh, it's 100% the Nets. Listen, if you have a chance to get Kevin Durant, you get Kevin Durant. And I think Celtics fans, they may love Jason Tatum. They may love Jaylen Brown. They may love Marcus Smart. Tatum's untouchable. But you trade Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart for Kevin Durant 100 out of 100.
You would do that. You would do that trade.
If I'm the Celtics.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, in a heartbeat, yes. And Celtics fans may say, oh, well, he's a hometown guy. Yeah, he's not Kevin Durant. So they'll get over it. The Nets, in my opinion, leaked this for two reasons. A, to see if there was any other stir-up in trade negotiations with other teams. They say, hey, the Celtics are offering Jaylen Brown and Derek White, maybe even Marcus Smart. We have to up our offer. Let's go back to Brooklyn with a counteroffer. And then B, exactly what you said. It never hurts to put a little fly in the drink of your number one rival or your division rival. And Jaylen Brown, whether it's right or wrong to be named in a trade rumor that may or may not even be true, he has every right to be pissed. Jaylen Brown's a critical number 2 guy on a team that made the championship this year. They didn't beat the Warriors, but they made the NBA Finals. And if he feels disrespected, that only helps the Nets moving forward. And eventually, even if they don't land him, he may say, screw this, you guys don't want me. I'm clearly, in my mind, the number 1. I won't be a number 1 here because you have Tatum. I want out. I want my own team. And that makes the Celtics worse, which means whatever the Nets have, with or without Kevin Durant moving forward, has an easier path to a division title and eventually a trip to the Eastern Conference Finals and an NBA championship.
I'd be absolutely livid if Durant ended up on the Celtics, because that's just like all my worst nightmares all into one. There's 3 teams Durant cannot be traded to, in my opinion, under any circumstance: the Knicks, the Celtics, and the Sixers. Those 3 teams, unless the Celtics are offering Tatum, unless the Sixers are offering Embiid, and there's nothing the Knicks have that I would want ever. So unless they're coming to the table with their best and the brightest that they have, then I have no interest in dealing with those teams. It's got to be anybody else in the league. Those 3 teams for me. I'm not doing business with. I'm just not doing it unless they're willing to pony up Jason Tatum or Joel Embiid, which they're not going to do. So I'm not entertaining them at all. That's where I stand on that. So it's been 1 month since the trade. I don't know what I expect. I thought maybe, when he first made the request that, something would materialize pretty quickly, but it's not been the case at all. In your mind, and seeing how things have sort of been quiet basically on the Durant front, is he on the team to start the season?
Yeah, and we actually kind of alluded to that back when you were here, Frank. I just don't think there's an offer out there for him. And I don't think Sean Marks, with 4 years left on Durant's contract, is going to give him away for 75 cents on the dollar. And I'm glad for that, because there's no reason to get rid of him for 75 cents on the dollar. Durant may have been upset in the moment over the Kyrie contract. He may have been upset over a myriad of reasons. But in the last month, I think he's had a chance to look around the league and say, you know what? My best chance to actually win and the best move for my legacy is to win in Brooklyn. And Durant's an introspective guy. I mean, he does make some rash decisions sometimes, but for the most part, he's pretty smart about what he does, what he says, and when he says it. And, you know, I do think there's a chance that in the moment he said something that he believed, but it may not have been in the best interest for him long term. And he's had this time now to sit back, reevaluate the situation, and figure out that Brooklyn may actually be the place to be. But once again, look at all the offers we've seen, hypothetical, realistic, reported. You and I have come up with trade machines. I haven't seen anything that's actually been on the table that makes me say, yeah, I might even consider that for Durant. Anthony Edwards isn't on the table. Luka Doncic isn't on the table. The Brandon Ingram trade with a bunch of picks reportedly wasn't on the table. Scotty, like none of the deals that have been floated around, like I'm not trading Durant for Jalen Brunson, RJ Barrett, and 4 picks. Like that's not nearly enough if Rudy Gobert got 5. So I don't think there's a destination for Durant at this time that makes any sense remotely for him or for Brooklyn.
I mean, you were so excited after the Gobert trade. You're like, oh my God, if they got this for Gobert, then the Nets are going to get
It screwed up though. It ended up screwing us up. Or saving Durant, depending how you look at it.
It's crazy though that Gobert's not a great player. He's good on defense, but man, he is not like a franchise-altering player. And hearing Karl Anthony Towns be like, "We want to win a championship," obviously, like whenever you have press conferences like that, the players are going to be like, "We want to win a championship together." But I got news for you: Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns are not winning a championship together in Minnesota. It's just not happening. That core is just not strong enough to win a title in the West. And Gobert is not a great player, and Towns always chokes in the biggest moments. So that team's not going anywhere. But it's been very. You thought like. I don't know. It's been very strange to see all of that play out. One other thing I wanted to hit on, and Draymond Green talked about this, I believe, either today or yesterday. Why do people keep making comparisons between the 98 Bulls and the 17 Warriors? Is this the most infuriating topic in sports?
I mean, it's the dead time. There's no sports. Baseball's the only thing going on. And these dudes have to talk about something. And they know clicks drive revenue, what gets clicked on every time. Anytime someone compares the Bulls to the Warriors, 2 best teams ever, and you have a guy who actually played on that team calling out the old, like,
it's the dumbest debate ever. And every like, it's always on the, who would win? I don't know. We'll never know. I never want to hear that stupid question ever again. We will never know who would win. It's different eras. It is not comparable. I'm sick of it. Sick of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's an impossible question to answer. There is no right answer.
But do you get aggravated by it like I do, or you're like, "Ooh, that's"?
No, I just don't care. Like, why are you gonna get worked up over something Draymond Green said about an irrelevant topic?
It's just it gets like because it gets aggregated, and then they talk about it on shows, and
So what annoys you more, that conversation or the whole Jerry West, JJ Redick beef right now?
I mean, I don't really I think the Jerry West thing is a little more interesting, just because I've heard that the 2017 Warriors against the 98 Bulls thing. It feels like for the past 5 years, nonstop, ever since they won the title in 2017, it's been constant. Who would win? Who would win?
Are you bored by the Jordan LeBron debate?
I mean, I'm thinking that.
I'm just saying, like, there are certain debates. Until a team rivals one of those two, you're going to hear it every offseason.
Well, I'm not debating like how often you're going to hear. I'm just saying it's stupid. And I'm sorry, I can't take it.
It's an unanswerable question. So
why are we debating unanswerable questions? It's a waste of my time. That's all.
All right. Next topic.
All right, so let's get into some baseball. I don't know how much Yankees you've been watching. Have you been watching the Yankees at all?
On and off. I'm excited for the Subway Series this week. I got my Wednesday blocked off for that, which means Watson's going to get suspended Wednesday night.
So Tuesday and Wednesday, Subway Series. It's Citi Field. Yankees, they lead the AL East by 12.5 games, but in the past like 3 weeks or so, it's been a pretty rough go of it. They just lost Michael King to a fractured elbow. They're still waiting to find out if he needs Tommy John surgery, but
tough loss.
The first 3 months of the season, I'd say were pretty euphoric. Felt like a little team of destiny vibes, but now, I don't know. It's the feelings. I mean, we'll see if they can turn it back on, but seeing that, losing those 2 games to the Astros were a real punch in the gut. And losing Michael King is another massive loss. And this team has a lot of issues. Like, you go up and down. It's not like this is, you look up and down the team and you see like where they are in the standings. You're like, oh my God, this is an absolute juggernaut. They have a lot of problems. Joey Gallo is the worst player of all time. I'd be shocked if he's on this team on August 2nd during the trade deadline because he just can't continue. Luis Severino is hurt. Chapman is turning into the worst pitcher literally of all time. Jonathan Loaizaga does not resemble the guy he was last year. Josh Donaldson's been a colossal failure. He's been absolutely horrendous. There's so many. Isaiah Connor-Fleva doesn't have a single home run. Like, I know he's got a 12-game hitting streak, but man, this team is very flawed.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising that they've been able to really build up that lead in the AL East, considering the bottom of the lineup isn't good. Like 6 through 9, I'm not really scared of anyone there. Their starting pitching has been good, but the back end of the bullpen has some question marks. Chapman has been abysmal. Frank will talk about him in a sec, but he's been abysmal. And there's like 5 guys on the lineup that I trust, and then everyone else is a complete crapshoot. Everyone else is completely, you have no idea what you're getting on a nightly basis from. And in baseball, that consistency is what leads to these magical seasons. And the Yankees have like 3-4 guys who are truly consistent, and the rest is hit or miss. I'm not surprised their record's as good as it's been, because when they're hot, they're unbelievable. But I'm also not going to freak out over a couple losses and a couple up and down series, because in baseball, we say it every year, it's 162 games. You're going to have some ups, you're going to have some downs. No team wins every series. Even to win 116 games, you're going to lose a couple of series. You're going to have a couple of weeks where your bats aren't as hot, your pitchers aren't as sharp. It just happens. It's part of the progression of a season. It's not time to worry. There's still, 35 games over 500 and 12 and a half games up in first place. Like, don't take the panic button out, but some of the flaws of this team that were hidden by some majestic hitting early in the year are starting to be exposed a little more. And as you look towards the playoffs and their matchup with the Astros, that's where you got to look at how you can fine-tune this roster to make them a better matchup against the Astros and what's inevitably going to be the ALCS.
Yeah, the Yankees have to get home field for that series because they just can't win in Houston. They can't hit in Houston for whatever reason, whether it's hidden cameras or whatever they got going on there. They never hit in Houston. It's completely unexplainable. Back to Joey Gallo. Is he the worst Yankee you've ever seen? And where does he rank among your most hated Yankees?
He's up there most hated.
Because I have a list.
Let me ask you real quick. When you say worst, do you mean worst compared to what the expectation of him was?
Just in terms of just pure competence, just one of the most incompetent players you've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, you know me, I'm not a fan. I can't stand a guy who strikes out that much. His average is putrid. Yeah, he's up there. Let me hear your list. I don't have a full list, but let me hear your list.
My most hated Yankees list of all time. Number 1 is Jeff Weaver. Single-handedly blew the 2003 World Series for the Yankees. Just will never forgive him from that. Should have never lost the Marlins. So he's number 1. Number 2 is Aroldis Chapman. He blew the 2019 season and the 2020 season, and the last 2 years has been completely untrustworthy and has given up massive home runs and completely crumbled in the biggest moments. So he's number 2. Number 3 is Javi Vasquez. Gave up the grand slam to Giant Damon in 2000.
I like Javi.
Oh, come on. He's like he's one of my worst moments of a fandom in life. Javi Vasquez was on the mound for it, and it's completely unforgivable. Number 4 is Kevin Brown. Was completely also awful in 2004. So I'd say those are my top 4. And then in terms of number 5, Joey Gallo is in the top 10 somewhere. I don't know if he's 5th, but my top 4 are pretty concrete, set in stone. Jeff Weaver, Aroldis Chapman, Javi Vasquez, and Kevin Brown. Top 4 most hated Yankees of all time, and because they're single-handedly responsible for blowing multiple seasons for my teams.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to argue.
You like Javi Vasquez? What the hell's wrong with you? What was there to like? He was terrible in 2010 when they brought him back. Every time in 2004 he was. I mean, I believe he made the All-Star team. I believe both years. But when push came to shove in the playoffs, he was nowhere to be found. Absolutely horrible.
It was 2004, man. We were young. We were like 11 years old. I just remember like it.
Those are my formidable sports years. Those are like my every game I lived and died with. Like I couldn't go to sleep until the Yankees made the World Series. I don't believe I slept a single second when the Yankees were blowing their 3-0 lead to the Red Sox. So I told myself I'm not going to sleep until the Yankees clinch the pennant. And guess what? They never clinched the pennant, and it was all Javi Vasquez's fault.
And that's why you're so crazy now. It makes perfect sense.
and they've only one World Series since. But one of the good things for the Yankees has been Aaron Judge. And by the second, his contract that he's going to get in the offseason keeps going up and up, whether it's from the Yankees or somebody else. But he's got 37 home runs, 81 RBIs. Mike, is this the greatest offensive season you've ever seen by a Yankee?
So I don't watch it enough day to day to compare it to some of the old seasons, like when A-Rod had his great couple of years. There's some other guys throughout the early 2000s. But looking at the numbers, yes. He's on pace for 62 home runs now.
If he gets to 60, like the day-to-day like hype and coverage around Judge and the Yankees will be, I mean, literally unlike anything we may have ever seen. Just
it's gonna be amazing.
Huh?
It's gonna be amazing.
Oh, to see like him potentially break Maris's record, which most like baseball fans view as like the quote unquote true home run record because of the steroids of Bonds, McGuire, and Sosa. So if he can hit 62 home runs, I mean, man, that would be.
Yeah. And the thing is with Judge, like he strikes out a little too much for my liking.
Well, he's gotten so much better with that though.
If you let me finish one sentence, Frank, I'm getting it. A, that's baseball today. B, he's getting better. And C, what I love about Judge is he does not always swing for the fence. If there's two strikes, he'll find ways just to get on base. He hits singles, he hits doubles. What's his average right now? Like 283, 287?
He's up to 294.
Like, I'll take that every freaking day from anybody in the lineup. And the dude mashes. He's 6'7". He covers the strike zone. Like, there's a certain joy you get watching baseball, right? And some players are just more boring than others. And Frank, we were at the game earlier this month. I'm going to the Astros Guardians game coming up, which won't have Aaron Judge, but like Jordan Alvarez is the same way. There are dudes that are just bigger than life, physically. And when you see them do the same things that normal sized people do, you go, that doesn't make sense. And Aaron Judge is one of the physical freaks of baseball. That doesn't make sense. And that's what makes him so much fun to watch. And that's why he is, since Derek Jeter, the face of what the Yankees have been. He's earning himself maybe the biggest damn contract that has ever been offered to somebody. We'll talk about Juan Soto in a sec, but Aaron Judge is in that same conversation with more average money. He's a little older, so maybe not the exact same length. But what he's doing is unbelievable, and he single-handedly makes me keep up with the Yankees on days that I'm not watching.
What he's doing is absolutely incredible. Do I think it's the greatest offensive season I've ever seen by a Yankee in my lifetime? I don't know. A-Rod in 07 was pretty ridiculous. I believe he finished that year with like 54 homers and 150 something or a lot of RBIs, and he won the MVP. And it was, he was from the start to finish, he was just absolutely dominant. But in terms of those are 1-2, we'll see how far he gets. If he gets to 60, man, that'll be something. On the other side, though, the Red Sox completely falling apart. They lost 28-5 the other day on Saturday, and the whole story after the game or during the game and afterwards was Kevin Durant didn't see the ball hit that Ramil Tapia hit the center field that ended up being inside the park grand slam. He didn't even run after the ball. I don't know if he thought it was gone or not, but did you see that play?
I saw it on Twitter. Yeah.
So what I couldn't tell was if he thought the ball was gone, which is why that must have been what it was. But after the game, he was extremely cocky. But either way, extremely. It's always good to see the Red Sox struggling like that, and they're probably have to trade all their players at the deadline, which honestly scares me a little bit because Devers is an absolute beast, and I just hope that he goes to the National League so I don't have to deal with him anymore. But the Red Sox, if they do sell, they're going to trade everybody, and they're going to get a completely overhauled organization from top to bottom, which scares me a little bit because anytime teams do that, they usually pan out pretty good, I feel like.
It's hit or miss. You could have the next Devers, you could have the next Will Middlebrooks. You just don't know when you make a trade like that. So, I wouldn't mind seeing Devers get out. He kills Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole, for whatever reason, just cannot get him out. It's the eighth wonder of the world why those two, or why Garrett Cole can strike out anyone else but Devers. But yeah, I'm not gonna lie. I sent a couple memes out to some friends on Friday night when they lost 28-5. I was enjoying the Boston, New England Falcons 28-3 memes when it was 28-3. Like I partook. I enjoyed it. And anytime the Red Sox struggle, yeah, I cracked a little smile. It doesn't suck to see.
So moving on to from Aaron Judge to Juan Soto, 15 years, $440 million. And everyone sees 440 and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you turned that down. Mike, that wasn't a good contract for him to take.
No, I agree.
He would have been like 18th or 19th in average annual salary. Like that was like, if the Nationals are really serious about re-signing Juan Soto, they would have offered him like a 10-year, $400 million contract, not a 15-year, $400 million contract. So this whole like idea about, oh my God, Juan Soto, how could you reject that money? Well, it was a terrible contract. So I don't blame him at all. Do I want the Yankees to get him? Obviously, I would love to have him on the Yankees. But the issue with Juan Soto is that you bring him in and it's going to be like either him or Judge. And you can't have an outfield of Soto, Judge, and Stanton. Like that's just, in terms of the way this, like the luxury tax thing is, like you can't have those three guys on the same team. So that's why I don't see it happening. He would be the perfect Yankee, lefty in Yankee Stadium.
Is there any package you can make with Stanton as the centerpiece to send him back?
The Nationals have no interest in that because they're trying to tear it down. Like getting Stanton back for them is a moot point because they don't want prospects. They don't want any established players because they want to tear it down from the bottom up, restart from scratch. And that's what sucks about like the Kevin Durant thing too, is like, you can't like get like an equivalent player back. It's got to be like, because no team's doing that. I don't know. It's very frustrating. I don't see Juan Soto getting traded to the Yankees. I don't, the Nationals are in no rush to trade him though. They have like a year and a half, 2 years before they have to really make that decision. So, we'll see.
I would love for the Yankees to make a move for him just because him at the Yankee Stadium would be absolutely electric. And he's only 23, which is stupid. It feels like he's been around forever because he has, but he's only 23. Like I would mortgage everything for him, but I do agree that you bring him in and you have Jeter, A-Rod 2.0 of whose team is this? And, in hindsight, A-Rod won us one World Series, but would you do that trade again?
The A-Rod trade?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I don't know if I would give him the whole second contract again, but the A-Rod trade was amazing.
But I'm saying, assuming you'd have to give Soto a 12-year contract in hindsight.
Oh yeah, I mean, absolutely, 100%.
I would take
it.
He'd be a perfect Yankee.
It creates too many issues, I think, with Judge and Stanton, and not that I. Well, I mean, we almost got to play out the year first. Like, if the Yankees win the World Series and Judge is the face, like it just changes the whole trajectory, the whole complexion of everything. So we'll see what happens there. The Yankees, though, they need multiple starting pitchers, I think, at the deadline because Severino's hurt. He's had that same injury in the past. Taillon's really struggling right now. Nestor has had a couple good starts here after a rough patch, and then you have Cole and you have Montgomery. Like, that's not phenomenal. I don't think that staff is good enough to win a World Series. And I think what Brian Cashman needs to do is he needs to realize this team hasn't won since 2009. No more funny business. Go out there, get a Luis Castillo, and make a real run at this because I want to win really badly. It's been too long.
Hey, the window is open right now. The World Series window is wide open for the Yankees. It's them and the Astros in the American League, and then there's a couple of teams in the National League you have to worry about. But when you have a chance to win a World Series, you go in. And I hate teams, and to see this in Cleveland right now, like they got Deshaun Watson, not to change sports, but their salary cap fit Watson this year, and they felt their best chance to win a championship. And then next year, they got a lot of contracts, a lot of young guys you have to pay. We're not going to be able to keep the team. I'm not saying the Yankees and apples to apples in baseball, it's not apples to apples, but when you have a chance to win, you go in and you push the chips on the table and you make a move, and whatever the Yankees front office and the general manager and the owner feel like is the best move to put them in a position to win a World Series this year, they have to go and make it happen. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. They have to go and make it happen.
We'll see. A lot of pressure on Cashman. This will be one of the most important stretches of time during his tenure with the Yankees. Speaking of, have you watched Derek Jeter documentary?
I have not. And before you yell at me, let me tell you why.
I know you're extremely busy at work. I understand.
No. It's actually has nothing to do with that. The Last Dance, I had to watch week by week because it was everywhere on social media. I didn't see the first episode, and I only saw one or two things from it. And I hate waiting a week. I'd rather binge it when it's all out than watch it increment by increment. So it's just my personal preference. So I'm waiting till all of it's out, then I will watch it in like 3 days. My retention will be much better that way. So no, I haven't. But please, talk about it. There's no real spoilers. Like, talk about it.
Derek Jeter is way too important to me as a person to wait for the whole thing to come out. Like, he's my favorite player of all time, and if anything's being done about Derek Jeter, I'm watching it immediately. I could rewatch it again afterwards. I've watched every episode twice already. Well, the episodes that have come out, not all 7, but I watch it once just for enjoyment, and I watch it again when I write my recaps on my blog. Thousands of views, by the way. But the big thing, like Mike, is I watch like videos of '98 all the time. Like I watched '98 World Series film, and then there's like the MSG like Yankees 1998 season was called the season of their lives, and like I watch these videos all the time when I'm like at the gym, on the treadmill, the elliptical, working out. So like all these stories are like fresh in my mind. So it's not as I'm not learning a ton of things. It's always great to look back at the great Yankee teams. It's phenomenal, and it never gets old. And
I'm excited to watch it. Like I said, I would rather watch it in 2-3 days when I could sit down and have some time and binge it than wait a week, watch it, wait a week. That's just how I prefer to watch shows.
it's a loser's mentality.
I'm a loser, Frank.
So when are we getting this Deshaun Watson news? What the hell's taking so long?
Listen, I'm flying to Texas on Thursday for a wedding, which means Thursday afternoon to Monday I'm out of commission. So inevitably it'll happen Friday afternoon. But if better,
Do you have to like stop what you're doing and go back to Cleveland if it breaks?
no, we could do everything remote, but I'll have to stop what I'm doing in Texas and hop on a stream and produce the shit out of the stream. So that is the plan. I pray that the Browns start camp on Wednesday. Let's just get a decision by Wednesday. Let's just have this out in the open, clear it up, whatever it is. I think it's going to be much shorter than people anticipate. I think it falls between, my guess would be 4 to 6 games right now, which is a stark difference in the indefinite suspension, the full year suspension that was once thrown out there. But Frank, I'm telling you, it needs to end. It needs to happen. It needs to happen.
That will do it for this edition of the Lucas podcast. We'll see how the Yankees do this week against the New York Mets. Terrible pitching matchup on Wednesday. I believe it's going to be Domingo Germán against Max Scherzer. Mets by 1 million in that game. So the Yankees have to win on Tuesday, because to deal with the Met fans at work, Mike, they are intolerable, and I can't stand them.
I'll see you next week.